Long ago, in the land of Egypt, the Great Pyramids already stood for 2,000 years. The pharaohs who built them were long gone. Instead, Egypt was ruled by a Greek family called the Ptolemies, descendants of one of Alexander the Great's generals. For 300 years, they ruled from Alexandria, a city of marble and gold by the Mediterranean Sea. But the dynasty was crumbling. Brothers fought brothers, sisters plotted against sisters, and into this world of intrigue, a girl was born who would become the most famous woman in history. Her name was Cleopatra, the seventh of that name. She was born in Alexandria in the year 69 before Christ. The city was a wonder of the ancient world. Its library held the collected knowledge of humanity. Its streets bustled with Greek philosophers, Egyptian priests, Jewish merchants, and travelers from as far as India. Young Cleopatra grew up in the royal palace, surrounded by luxury and danger. She learned to speak many languages. Greek was her native tongue, but she also mastered Egyptian, Hebrew, Arabic, and even the language of the distant Ethiopians. She was the first Ptolemy who bothered to learn Egyptian. This simple act would win her people's hearts. When Cleopatra was 18, her father died and she became queen, but she was forced to rule alongside her 10-year-old brother Ptolemy XIII, who was controlled by ambitious advisors. They drove her out of Alexandria, and she fled into the desert. She was alone, stripped of power, with nothing but her wits and her will. But Cleopatra did not despair. In the burning sands of Egypt, she gathered an army. She would return to Alexandria, and she knew exactly who could help her. It was the year 48 before Christ. Across the sea, the Roman Empire was tearing itself apart. Two great generals, Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great, were locked in civil war. Pompey fled to Egypt, seeking refuge, but the young king's advisors had him killed, hoping to win Caesar's favor. It was a terrible mistake. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria, he was furious. He took control of the royal palace. And then, one evening, a rolled-up carpet was delivered to his chambers. When it was unfurled, out stepped Cleopatra, the exiled queen who had smuggled herself across enemy lines. She was 21 years old. Caesar was 52, and everything was about to change. Caesar was captivated. Here was a queen who spoke 7 languages, who understood politics and philosophy, who had the courage to smuggle herself past armed guards in a carpet. They talked through the night. By morning, Caesar had decided to restore Cleopatra to her throne. Together, they defeated the forces of her brother, who drowned in the Nile during the battle. Cleopatra was now the undisputed queen of Egypt, with the might of Rome behind her. Cleopatra and Caesar took a magnificent journey up the Nile River. A fleet of 400 ships carried them past ancient temples and pyramids, past villages where people had never seen a Roman. For Cleopatra, it was a triumphant return to her kingdom. For Caesar, it was the happiest time of his life. He saw a land of unimaginable wealth and beauty, and Cleopatra showed him that Egypt deserved to be an equal partner, not a conquered province. Back in Alexandria, Cleopatra gave birth to a son. She named him Caesarion, Little Caesar. For the first time, a queen of Egypt had an heir who could claim descent from both the pharaohs and the greatest Roman of the age. But tragedy was coming. In Rome, jealous senators feared that Caesar wanted to become a king. On the Ides of March, they surrounded him in the Senate and stabbed him to death. When the news reached Alexandria, Cleopatra knew she had lost her protector. She would have to find another way to save her kingdom. A new man now ruled Rome, or at least half of it. His name was Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general. He summoned Cleopatra to explain herself, to answer questions about her loyalty. So Cleopatra sailed to meet him at the city of Tarsus. But she did not go as a supplicant. She arrived on a barge with purple sails and silver oars, with musicians playing flutes, with servants burning incense. She dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, and her arrival was so magnificent that crowds abandoned the marketplace to watch. Mark Antony was completely enchanted. Antony and Cleopatra fell deeply in love. They had 3 children together. Antony gave Cleopatra vast territories, restoring much of the old Egyptian empire. Cleopatra was now the richest and most powerful woman in the world. She called herself the Queen of Kings, but in Rome, this was seen as treason. A young rival named Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, declared war. He told the Roman people that a foreign queen had bewitched their greatest general, and that she wanted to rule Rome itself. The 2 great fleets met at Actium, off the coast of Greece. Hundreds of warships clashed in the waves. Cleopatra commanded her own Egyptian fleet, 60 magnificent ships. But Octavian's forces were led by a brilliant admiral named Agrippa. The battle was a disaster. In the chaos, Cleopatra's flagship broke through the enemy lines and sailed away. Antony abandoned his own men to follow her. They fled back to Alexandria together. Love had cost them an empire. Back in Alexandria, Antony fell into despair. Octavian's armies marched on Egypt. Antony's remaining forces deserted him. In the confusion, a false message reached him, saying that Cleopatra was dead, unable to bear a world without her. Antony fell on his sword, but the message was a lie. Cleopatra was alive, hiding in her magnificent tomb. They carried the dying Antony to her, and he died in her arms. Octavian entered Alexandria without a fight. He wanted to parade Cleopatra through Rome in chains, a trophy for his triumph. But Cleopatra refused to be humiliated. Dressed in her royal robes, she lay on a golden couch. According to legend, she pressed a small poisonous snake, an asp, to her arm. When Octavian's guards broke into her chamber, they found her dead, serene and beautiful, surrounded by her loyal servants. She was 39 years old. She had been queen for 22 years. With Cleopatra's death, Egypt became a Roman province. The 3,000-year line of the pharaohs had come to an end. But Cleopatra did not truly die. Her story lived on. Shakespeare wrote plays about her. Artists painted her for centuries. Movies brought her to life. The Egyptian queen who spoke 7 languages, who rolled herself in a carpet, who stole the hearts of 2 of Rome's greatest men, who chose death over dishonor, became immortal, not as a conquered queen, but as a symbol of intelligence, courage, and the refusal to be anything less than magnificent. So now, as you drift off to sleep, imagine Alexandria, the city of white marble by the deep blue sea. Imagine the Library of Alexandria, glowing with knowledge that would one day be lost to flames. Imagine the pharaoh's lighthouse, the tallest building in the world, sending its beam across the water. Imagine a young queen, 21 years old, who refused to accept exile, who spoke the language of her people, who used her intelligence and her courage to carve her name into history. She was Cleopatra, the seventh of her name, the last pharaoh.